Hello and welcome to this video demonstration of FL Studio. In this video we're going to be going over some of the basic fundamental components of FL Studio and what makes it a really good DAW. I'd say first and foremost it is an excellent tool to produce professional grade soundtracks, and this is done through the use of synthesizers as well as bringing in vocals and real instruments or whatever it may be that you'd like to produce with. So we're going to get to it. We're going to start off just explaining the different components that make up the DAW. Now again, it may look a little confusing. Looks like there's plenty of knobs and buttons, but we're going to try to go over in the most simplest manner and explain really the things that are going to be used the most and fundamental to the program. So let's get started. So up in the top left hand corner, like in most applications, we have a simple menu system with a few different drop downs here. Again, your file just has your basic file manipulations where you can create new projects, open projects, save projects, and you can also do some imports of MIDIs and even exports to various types of audio files. You know, when you're completing and publishing this. So each file is a FLP file, which is a small file containing just the basic information where all your audio tracks are lined up and even MIDI placements and that sort of thing. But it does not include your imported audio files. It will not store those, but rather locate those on your computer where you have them stored. So the files do stay relatively small. Moving on, your basic edit menu, cut and copy, and these other things are not used very much, or at least I've not used them very much, other than the send to piano roll, which we will discuss later on in the video. The next menu is a little bit more important, and it is one of the things that makes what makes up FL Studio, and it's their channeling system, which allows you to pretty much place effects or synthesizers or whatever it may be onto certain patterns. So again, the channel menu allows you to add channels, clone selected channels, delete selected, move them up and down in the pattern, group them, and that sort of thing. So we'll definitely be coming back to this menu here. View, again, just your basic menu to select your views. Again, we have almost all of the main views here selected besides the piano roll, which we will get into later on in the video. Some different layouts. So it does allow you to get the program to where you enjoy working in. So moving on, options. Again, just another convenient menu to give you options on different aspects of the system, project, MIDI, and switches. So you can go in here and dig through these menus and get audio settings and MIDI settings to your liking. Again, moving forward, tools. Again, some just basic tools that allow you to do specific things, whether it's macros or external tools to load up maybe some MIDI devices and that sort of thing. And the last is help, which is your help menu, and there is a lot in the help because this is a large program. So that sums up the menu system, and a lot of times once you get going in your projects, you will not necessarily use these menus that often. You'll be working elsewhere, and you'll already have the windows and the things you need already at your fingertips. So moving on, we have, again, just small buttons here. These are MIDI audio sync beats and the MIDI input activity, which has to do with MIDI devices. FL Studio is very good at communicating with MIDI devices and allows you to record MIDI on the fly. But in this video, we're not going to be really going into MIDI because I don't have a MIDI device to use. So moving on down, we have master volume, which I don't really use that often. This is a master control volume that will control the audio levels of everything in your project. But we have this mixer down here that allows us to control each channel individually. So not something I really need. If I want to control the overall level of the music, I can just turn my speakers down until, for certain sections or whatever it may be, I need to turn it down, So I usually leave this where it's at. Next is your pitch, and same thing with the master volume. I don't really mess with this pitch. You can adjust pitch per sample, which is what these channels are. These are all samples here. So you can do that for each individual sample rather than the entire thing. So unless you're looking for some really interesting, weird pitch manipulation, you really don't have to worry about that. Moving on down, so we have our seek position, which allows you to see where you are in the song. In this case, I have it in seconds, which you can switch from seconds to beats, or not necessarily seconds, but minutes, where you can, so either a bar or minute. I usually keep it in the minute, just to give me a heads up where I will see seconds and minutes in the track rather than beats. But again, that's depends on the user and what you need to determine where you are in your song. Right below that are some really heavily used controls. This is your main go-to for your control where you are in your song, and these look familiar: play, stop, and this last one is a record, which allows you to record any type of input from either a MIDI device or a microphone, whatever it may be. Clicking this button will activate your input devices, and when you hit play, it'll then go into a record session. To the left of that, we have two radio buttons here, pattern and song. And again, this is a large portion of what makes up FL Studio. They separate patterns from the entire song. And what it is the song is made up of many different patterns. And you can see this little guy over here, the seeker, this tracker, it becomes apparent when you switch to the song, rather than just in pattern. And we'll definitely get into more information, more detail regarding that later on. To the right of it, we have our tempo adjustment, which, if you're not familiar with tempo, this adjusts the speed of how fast the measures are being read through. A higher tempo would be a faster sort of song, and a lower tempo would be a slower song. And this really varies on what type of song you're producing. So if you're producing some sort of trance techno song, you might want to jack that up a bit. Otherwise, you want to be on the lower side. And 140 is pretty high. It is. I wouldn't really go higher than 140 unless I was, really stretching to have this crazy fast song. To the right of that is your pattern selector. which we will get definitely more into detail on this particular thing, but just adjusting will turn the patterns up and down. And below that is your song position, which again controls where you are in the song, but there are other ways to seek through your song that are more effective than this. Okay, so moving up here, we have our audio levels, and this is a wave shape that will become apparent when you play audio. So if I wanted to play just a kick drum here, we will do this real quick, and as you can see, the levels went up, and this will just give you an idea of where you are on. You don't want to clip audio, so you don't want things really loud. So, but that's in a pretty good position right there. I don't know if turning that up would really affect it that much. Yeah, see, it's a little too hard. So that'll give you just a quick heads up on that. Moving right from that are your computer resources. Now, it can be an intensive program on your memory and CPU if you're using a lot of patterns and a lot of channels, and you're mixing a lot. This, you gotta have a decent computer to run this sort of piece of software. Below that are some handy recording options. Anywhere from typing keyboard to piano keyboard, and I'll get into this a little later. 3, 2, 1 countdown, metronome. Let's see if we clear this here. Just the metronome will give you a nice metronome to work with, and just some other recording related options. Moving here are some basic windows, or the primary windows that you will be using. We have a playlist, which is this guy right here. We have a step sequencer, which is this. A piano roll, which is currently hidden. We'll bring this up real quick. And then, as you can see, it takes up the whole screen, so we will hide that right there. The browser, which is this left-hand panel right here, and your mixer. And this is where you mix channels. So, moving forward, we have the 5 main views, and to the right of that we have some additional features that are gives you easy access to, such as undo. We have some imports or save as in rendering audio files, so recording and manipulating WAV files, and project info and help. So, and again, below, it's not the news. Yeah, I don't really use this news here, but I guess if you like to see news while you produce audio, I guess that's up to you. And all these panels are you can move them around. I haven't really deleted this yet. I just kind of keep it there or whatever. So those are your main controls, and it seems a little congested, but once you get the hang of it, you realize that the things that you do, that you used repetitively, and you know where to go to. And it's usually these 5 buttons here: your stop and play controls, your pattern and song. So using this and these over here will get you going. So moving on down to this step sequencer. You're probably wondering, what are all these slots here? And what this is we are looking at a set of samplers, which can be synthesizers, or can be audio files, or it can be anything, any type of effect that you would like to use in your song or audio whatever audio type of project you're working on. In this case, the default loads up with simple drum set of a kick, clap, hat, and snare. And we already demonstrated the kick, but we can go on and see a clap here. So we'll just put one little slot. And again, this is 4 beats in one measure. Again, this is a measure. So what we can do is play this clap. And as you can see, that'll just play once. So that's one measure at 140 beats per minute. And we can, you can load that up with every fourth, every beat. And you can also put a hat in there, where if we have a hat, the open hat, and as well as a snare. So very simple, basic, and you could, without a doubt, experiment in here and get a basic little drum riff going here. You could do something like that. You can even do. So as you can see, you could just place these things in specific spots here and generate a decent drum roll. But that's only half of what this pattern step sequencer allows you to do. And what you have to remember is what we are looking at is a specific pattern. And as you can see, this is pattern 1. What we can do is name this. And in this case, if we wanted to name this, it would be drums. So we now have this pattern called drums. And if we click here, we can see this is a drums. And what we can also do is add patterns. So if I wanted another pattern, I could go bass. So now we have drums and bass. So now switching between these two patterns, you can see that our initial layout of our kicks and hat on the drums is still there, but on this new pattern it's left completely blank. Though we can use the exact same sample on a different pattern. So if I wanted a drum here and I wanted it like that, and for this bass I wanted it every eighth of a measure, every 8 steps, I could do that. But in this case it's a bass and we don't want kicks and snares. So what we can do is add an additional sampler to get us some sort of tone or synthesized sound. And what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to our channels and we're going to add one. Look at all these channels here. Oscillators, beep map, Slayer, I think this is some sort of guitar, synthesizer, Nexus, Zeta, Wasp, all these different generators, which you can download more. There's thousands of them. But we're going to use a specific one that I'm drawn to, which is FL keys. So clicking on that will bring up this additional window, which gives you some options for FL keys. And these options are related directly to this guy, which is a new sample. And that obviously has gone below our drum related samples, and it's just named FL keys. And of course we can rename this, put a different color on it. As you can see, it's a darker color. You can control icons and all that crazy stuff. And you might have to. You can really get carried away and have quite a few different samples, because every sample you have, it's used for a different type of effect or tone So you could have pianos and violins or whatever it may be, they tend to add up. And you can also sort these, which we're just looking at all of them, but you can, in fact, sort them. So adding this additional sample here, we are still able to kind of lay these out, but the problem is if we play this, well, that's okay, I guess, if you wanted just one note, but you want to play it like you were playing a piano, it's kind of similar to this. So again, this is just a layout to check your settings. When you make adjustments over here, you're able to go and press these to check them. But when you're in here, we don't want to necessarily just have one single note. We want to we want something to play on. So what we can do, we'll delete those, is use this piano roll, and you can get to it through here, or you can also right-click here and check, click the piano roll. So this is our mysterious window that we just brought up. And what this consists of is a vertical row of notes and horizontally placed grids here. And what this represents is all the different notes on a piano, and you play them by placing blocks here inside of this grid. Now there are two different ways to view this. This looks a little confusing, D's and C's, and I guess if you know your music or you're trying to make chords, this would work wonderfully. But I personally like to use this keyboard view. You kind of have to tilt your head, but you can see that it's just a piano on its side. So what we can do here is lay out piano keys, notes, and we can control the velocity, the length of the note, the panning of the note, and even the volume. So we can do a lot, and we do that by placing, like I said, placing these blocks here on this grid. Where again, we're lined up. As you can see, when I hold it, it'll highlight that entire row. We can play. What we can do is we can put as many notes really as we want. So I could do something like that, and I can also put notes up here. So, and again, what we're doing, what we can do is now play this, and again, going back to this pattern versus song, if we have this pattern checked, it's only going to play what's in this pattern, rather than what's in this playlist over here if we switch to song. So just having in pattern will play just the pattern, and song will play from this playlist, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So switching back to pattern, if we play this, it will just repeat itself, this first measure, because we don't have any notes beyond this second measure here. So it'll just keep repeating. But you get the idea, and what you can see is how the notes are actually generated, how you actually plot notes. So again, I just kind of stack those to make a simple chord. This is a C. But what we're going to try to do is place a simple set of notes here and see if we can get something. Now I'm going to turn this tempo down because we don't want it really that fast. That's decent. And let's see if we can do something here. Actually, I'm going to bring this down. We do have this is on a bass, so we'll do this down here. actually going to pick this up just a little bit. I'm going to go down here. Now it can be tedious kind of going through here and trying to figure out, what notes sound good together. A little bit of experience, in the piano would definitely make this a lot easier. We'll finish this up. And one more. Let's see what that sounds like. Not too bad, and if you're not familiar with it, maybe when we get a little further on you'll realize it. It's actually Heart and Soul. It's the lower half of Heart and Soul. And what we can do with this now is start to make our song. And we're going to do that by using this playlist. And in this playlist we have our patterns listed right here, pattern clip sources. So again, we have our drum and we have our bass that we just made. So again, this is the pattern and this is the playlist, this is the song. So if we have our bass selected, you can see it's a little paintbrush tool, and we can actually paint this similarly to how we're doing on the piano roll, but we're actually painting the entire pattern. And as you can see, it's come up looking pretty similar to this guy right here. So in order to play this, if we played the pattern, it would still play from the piano roll, but if we switch that to song, you can see the seekers come over here and it'll play the same thing, but now on the playlist. So, but you can still see it in this particular piano roll because we're still on this selected pattern, and it's actively running through that pattern in the playlist. So if we were to switch back to the drums, obviously your piano roll has gone away because there's nothing on this piano roll on this particular pattern, and you won't see anything go. Now you do see the audio feed coming through, which just gives you an indication that that particular sample is playing, which can come in handy when you have quite a few different samples, and you want to see which one is actually playing, because it can get a little confusing. So having this playlist allows us to paint as many patterns as we want, and we can even put these on multiple channels. So as you can see, we can reuse this particular bass pattern, which is what we want to do in this particular song. This is the basic lower half of Heart and Soul, and it just keeps repeating. So we can use this throughout our song. So moving forward, we want to create the upper half of the song, which is what everyone is really familiar with. So we're going to do that by adding a channel, or pattern, sorry. We're going to call it lead. And again, we're going to come in here. This is our FL keys. I'm going to switch back to pattern because we only want the pattern here that we're making. And again, we're in the piano roll now. We're going to go up here. And we're going to try something like this. That's a little fast, so this could be troublesome. If we're trying to line up the upper part and the lower part, we might actually want to play them both at the same time. But how are we going to do that? Well, we have our lead pattern and we have our bass here. So what if we got rid of all these, we just start off with this, and we'll put this lead here. So that's just going to hang out there, and we can actively work on it while it's in the song playlist. So switching over to song, what's going to happen is they're both going to play. So let's check this out. As you can see, that's way too fast. So let's try something like that. Nope. Come back here. That sounds decent. Bring this, the extent of this note out a little bit. And try something like this. Go a little further on that. Again, just a little too much. Sounds like it's in the right place. And you can also click up here and get to the specific position that you want to play in, so you don't have to start the entire song over again. Oop. A little too fast there. Anyways, as you can see, using fairly simple techniques and just the basic knowledge of a piano, we're able to create a decent riff here, or the first half of the Heart and Soul. And with a little bit more effort, you can really make this pretty good. So what do you go from here? Well, you have just make a bunch of patterns and add a bunch of effects and make a different a bunch of beats. Well, that's a lot of what this program is made up of. And while producing the audio or the layout of these keys is important, there's also a lot that goes into the mixing aspect of it. And that's what I'm going to get into next, is actually putting them in these channels and doing stuff with them. So if we're going to just use this simple, let me actually fix this real quick. Let's see here. Okay, so we'll just use this specific portion of it. So, getting it into the mixer and doing stuff with it. Well, if you do recall, clicking on this particular channel, sample, or any of these samples will bring up another window that has additional features of it, or parameters of it. Going under the sample that we want to work with, in this case it's FL Keys, there's two windows here. One is really specific to FL Keys, the plugin to generate the piano tones, and the other is a more generic channel settings. And what we are able to do is use this FX box here, which comes default with with no number. And what we can do is we can assign a number to it. We're just going to assign a 1 just by dragging it up. And as you notice down here, it highlighted this first insert, or this channel, and you can see the 1 right here. So what would make sense is this FL Keys is now directed through this insert, and we can We can also see this by clicking play. Now you can see a master, and you can also see insert 1, whereas originally it was only in the master. So bringing this over will allow you to adjust FL keys on this particular channel, and we can adjust the volume, the panning. We can, if we just want to hear this, we can solo it. So we can control, and there's a lot more that you can really do with it. You can export it, so kind of record this particular channel to a file. So you can do a ton of things with it. We can just basic modification would just be to name it. So we'll just name this piano, just to kind of give us the heads up that this piano is on here. And what we can do with it is add effects or different filters that Fruity Loop offers, and we can also get additional ones that can be downloaded off the internet. But Fruity Loops does come with a vast selection to do many different things. Most commonly used would be your reverb or your phaser or a flanger, sometimes a chorus, but the extent is really almost unlimited to anywhere from vocoding to auto tuning, just an endless supply of different types of effects. We're going to go with a simple reverb and kind of give it some depth, because without it, if we were to take this off here, and we're actually just going to go and view this pattern. So again, selecting the pattern. And as you can see, that's how it is, how it sounds. Pretty basic piano. So pushing it back onto the first channel, now having this reverb, let's see what happens. And it gives a nice little ring to it, kind of like you're in a hall. Now, what we can do additionally is, selecting this drop down, adjust 2 different presets that are already there for your convenience. So we have different ones such as the cathedral or large hall, plenty other to mess around with. If we wanted in a cathedral, you can kind of guess it would be really echoey. It's almost too much. So what we can do is that we can actually turn that filter down so it's not as echoey. So as you can see, very powerful to add effects here. And you can also stack effects. So if you wanted a reverb and you wanted a flanger, let's just say you were going way out there with your effects and wanted some crazy stuff. Again, back down to the presets, we can do, let's say, a classic deep flanger. Give you that real wah sound. Again, cool, but on a piano, I'm not really sure that we want a flanger. So we can replace it. We just go up to none, and we can get rid of it. So yeah, that really sums up the basic authoring of the audio in FL Studio, just by simply placing blocks of different piano keys on patterns and loading these patterns into the playlist. Very easy. By mixing and getting some nice effects, and the possibilities are really endless. So that's cool. That's to make a nice song, but where do the vocals come in? Where do you get most songs have vocals, someone's singing. And Fruity Loops actually does that really well as well. So we're going to look at that next. So, again, we've had a chance to cover the basics of getting some tones generated and get a decent little part of a song playing here. But that's only a small portion of what this application is really capable of. So now what I'm going to show you now is a way to record audio as well as manipulate it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that by starting in opening a new audio editor, and that's using these set of buttons here. We're just going to use this guy right here. And what that did was bring up a editor that looks similar to, let's say, Audacity or some other DAWs that are available. And it has a series of buttons. Buttons are good. There's a ton of buttons here. And what you can do is you can go to File here, you can create new, you load an audio sample, basic file manipulations here. Again, just a ton of other possibilities here. Again, controls up here. We can record, stop, play, and loop. This is just whether or not to loop it. What we're going to do is we're going to load a sample here, and we're going to load that sample from this little collection of audio snippets of recorded. And it's actually my sister who is singing one of her songs. And yes, this looks a little confusing, but they're just markers. I've auto-tuned this, and those markers are put in there to signify where things have been auto-tuned. And again, if you can play this.
Do you know the way down? I'm finally leaving this town, and I'm not looking back, no, I cannot change the past.
So it plays just like a normal DAW, Audacity, or Acid, or whatever it may be. And you can also edit it. So if I wanted just a certain section, you could do something like a highlight and maybe trim it or cut that section out. You can also right click and get all of these tools through this way. Tons of tools. Reverse it, stretch it, pitch shift, blur, equalize. Just really a ton of stuff that you can do with the audio. So what you can do from here is actually bring it into your playlist. And now I'm not going to actually do it on our Heart and Soul because this audio doesn't necessarily go with this. But I do have a song that I made previously. We do not want to save that. It wasn't that well executed anyways. Yeah, yep, that's okay. Just lost some stuff. Again, because, like I said, the files do not keep the imported content. Some files may be lost if you do not keep them in the same directory or the original path that they were in. So no, I don't want to locate that. So loading an actual song brings up a few more panels, but some are also familiar. Mixer is still here. The pattern, the step sequencer is still here with our patterns. And, we have a little bit more patterns, but again, lead, bass, beat, chorus, and intro and verse. And yes, I'm using FL keys. My sister is an excellent piano player and composed her own song. And what I did was I hooked her up to a MIDI piano, and she recorded using a metronome and recorded it right into FL Studio. So again, very powerful. We have some additional filters here, compressor and EQ, which is good for your vocals. And you can see them here. I have labeled vocals. And put some filters on here to kind of fix the audio. I do not have access to a professional studio, so the quality isn't that great. So I've done some adjustments and try to get the best out of the audio that I could. Our playlist also looks a little fuller than the last one, but again, it's pretty simple. I have our vocals that were just a WAV file, and again, it's loaded through the editor, as you saw before. And you can also didn't want to do that. You can also edit the file if you need to by clicking in Edit Sample, in which it'll bring up that the editor as you saw previously. But we're going to leave it. It's fair. It could use more work, but I haven't touched it in a while. And we can double click here, and again, just a piano roll. Again, her key placements were all taken in by the MIDI interface, so you can see it's a lot more elaborate, but she is really good at playing the piano. So we can play the pattern here, or we could just play the entire song. And let's just go ahead and play this song here. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. I don't want it to go too high over the recording I'm doing here. It's kind of ironic because I usually never use that, and I told you I don't use that, and I'm using it. So we're going to hit play here.
Do not know the feeling. I cannot take another chance. Can you tell me the meaning of finding life inside your hands? Your hands. Do you know the way down? I'm finally leaving this town. I'm not looking back, no. I cannot change the past. Do you know the way down? I'm finally leaving this town. Oh, for good.
So that was a little snippet of one of my sister's songs. It's a decent song. It's not necessarily my style of music, but it's my sister, and it's really cool that she can do that. And it's really cool that you can do stuff like this in a tool and do it with such ease. It seems that everything is right in front of you, and with basic knowledge of the application, it allows you to create these excellent songs. Now, I'm sure there are certain things that you'd want to do with audio that maybe Fruity Loops or FL Studio is not what you need, not exactly what you're gonna want. If you're, let's say, patching together certain bits of a track to make one big file or something of that matter, maybe Audacity is at that level where it allows you to more easily edit the tracks rather than using this. Although you could still do it in FL Studio. I think there's just a lot more other background other noise in the background that you don't need. So it really depends on what level what you're trying to do with your audio. If you're trying to compose, it is an excellent tool. If you're recording your guitar, if you're recording MIDI, whether it be a piano or another device, this is an excellent tool. And one thing that I've actually left out is this side panel here on the left. And what this is, all it is a simple way to browse through all of these samplers that are available to use. Now we can add channels through here using different preset or different plugins. You know, like I said, some oscillation or FL keys we've used. But you can also go through here and see a lot more and see a lot of the presets that are available through each different plugin. Now each one doesn't necessarily have to be a plugin. They can be a simple wave file, and that's a lot what your drums are made up of, because maybe it's a little more challenging to synthesize a drum set. You are probably better off using an actual wave file, and that's what are all these. And as you can see, that it says loading, you know, whatever .wave. So they're actually files, and you can drag them here. The same. Instead of going here and adding a channel, you can just simply drag and drop, and now that's ready to go into whatever pattern you need it. Or we can delete this. So it's again very simple tool, but will not. It will never leave you. You can never know too much about this particular tool. I'm always finding new ways to do things and do things better. And there's a lot that I do not know about this application. If we take a simple look at this help folder, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but there are tons of files on the help. So there's a ton to this program. There's a lot to this. Definitely a loaded program. So that about wraps up my video. And if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer the ones that I can. And I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of Fruity Loops. I recommend it. Thanks for watching.